Hey guys, welcome to Florida Man 40k Podcast, Season 2, Episode 3. I'm one of your hosts, Dan Smith. I have with me Will, plays guard and hates nicknames, Taylor.
That is me.
Tim Penny, no nicknames required.
What's up, what's up?
And that third guy that no one cares about, John Lennon.
I think you're actually the third guy that no one cares about.
Well, yes, that is the case.
Ouch!
Anyways, how's everyone doing today? How's life? We are recording, just so everyone knows, on Sunday instead of Saturday because a couple of us had a little RTT we got to play in yesterday. But yeah, so how's everyone doing today?
Good. Doing all right.
It's a Sunday morning. I haven't left my house in 4 days. You know what? That's about it. I'm sure people can relate.
Been good. I actually was let off the leash all this week and was able to get a bunch of practice games in preparation for the Salt Classic. We'll talk about that at the end of the episode. And then just doing some hobbying.
Hell yeah. Well, towards the end of the episode, we are going to talk about some of the games we played and everything. But I did want to give a shout out to my guy, Louis Betancourt. He is one of the local TOs here in Central Florida, and he ran the Onslaught 2K RTT yesterday. And Louis he puts a lot of effort into making sure we've got quality terrain with everything going on with COVID, making sure we're staying socially distanced, everyone's wearing masks. But Will and I went to that RTT, had a blast, and yeah, it was just an awesome event. So I wanted to shout that out. We'll go into more detail towards the end of the episode, talk about some of the games we played. We met a super cool dude who actually listens to the show. So just stuff like that we'll hit towards the end of the episode. But before that, we're going to dive in and talk about some Space Wolves.
That's right, Dan. Today, we're going to talk not only about Space Wolves, but also Deathwatch and what we've been up to. So, John, let's dive right into what Space Wolves are like in 9th edition after their Codex release.
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of got Space Wolves a couple of months ago now. I think they came out in like November. It's middle of February now. Space Wolves kind of like landed with a thud where they were never really seen as bad, but frankly, no one was overly impressed with the new Space Wolf rules. But they're definitely not bad. They've made some fringe appearances. They haven't had any like, this pure Space Wolf list just won a tournament, but they've had some podiums. I've seen them, win a couple RTTs before. They're kind of interesting and weird because a lot of people think that they got a little bit worse when they went from the index to the Codex, which with limited events right now, of course, is difficult to check the stats on and know exactly how accurate that is. But they're definitely the most unusual of the Codex supplements to come out, in my opinion, in that their power is very not obvious on the surface. I think that they're the hardest to get a top tier book out of the Codex supplements that have come out now. Leaning into it, this isn't really a review of Space Wolves, more so discussing their place in the meta. We assume that everyone has read the Space Wolf Codex if they wanted to by now. So we more wanted to talk about just what the heck to actually do with Space Wolves. My big thing with Space Wolves is that they're one of the combat armies, and I kind of group White Scars, Blood Angels, Black Templars, and Space Wolves all together for comparison purpose, because my take is always, if you play one Space Marine chapter, you play every Space Marine chapter. And so anytime I think I'm taking a close combat Space Marine army, I look at these 4 chapters and be like, all right, which one is best? Space Wolves are weird because they might actually hit the hardest of the 4. Like, in just pure, going into close combat and hitting people, they might actually hit the hardest. The problem is that they're probably the hardest to get into close combat of those 4 chapters. Templars have Devout Push and Advanced in Charge. Scars have Advanced in Charge and buffs to their Advanced in Charges. Blood Angels just kind of slap jump packs on everything and call it a day. Space Wolves are in a little bit of a weirder boat. I know you did some reading kind of leading into this one.
Yeah. So I guess what the problem with Space Wolves and getting into combat is, they have a lot of different ways to get there with Warlord traits, handing out reroll charges or advancing charges in some cases. A couple of units have what is that called? I think not Savage Fury, Seeking Hunters or something like that, right? What's that?
Savage Furries, yeah.
Savage, yeah, Savage Furries. Hold on, let me get the thing. Swift Hunters. Swift Hunters, the Swift Hunters ability, which lets the unit advance and charge. I do believe they can pile in 1 extra inch. And then there's I think a warlord trait that has once you've gained the saga that gives out reroll charges too. So like they've got all sorts of ways to get specific units into close combat quickly. But the problem is those units they don't have fly. They don't have the infantry keyword. They are encumbered by whatever is on the table. And I know a lot of these bigger events have, big L's that are ruins that you can't move into, so you have to go around them. And you can kind of play around the speed of a Thunderwolf Cav to make sure that they don't touch you. Couple that with some of the other changes, like overall changes to all of the Imperium's options, like the Storm Shield not giving you a 3-up invul save, and the Thunder Hammer only being AP2. They really... Oh, and also, losing the ability to transhuman because the guys that ride the Thunderwolves are not Primaris. There is a lot of limiting defensive features for the standout unit to play around, to give them a real counterplay. Am I correct on that?
You are. We should also mention that they don't get to take apothecaries, which is hilarious.
Oh, true.
Apothecary is like the most broken character in the Imperium right now.
Yeah. I just wanted to jump in. It's really funny that they don't have the apothecary. The wolf priest is their only thing that can heal things but never res anything, which I mean is like a limiting factor by the lore standard. Every other faction that has had something that has been put in that is from the lore, in the fluff, usually does well. Is usually like something that you really want to get. Like, I mean, look at Dark Angels, and the way that they fleshed out not only the fluff side of the army, but how it functions on the tabletop. This is, I think, the only instance in the game where a fluff unit is a detriment rather than a benefit.
Yeah, this is definitely one of them. So I'm gonna kind of diagnose what I think is the overarching problem with Space Wolves. And this is absolutely not personal, but the problem is Space Wolf players. And that's not to say that they're bad, it's that the Space Wolf Codex is not built to reward you for playing Space Wolves as, like, actual Space Wolves. Because, like, there's a lot of rules and stratagems and, like, Savage Hunters or whatever it was called, that, Swift Hunters, that, like, makes you want to play Thunderwolves. The problem is that, the problem is that they took all of the fun rules away from Wolfen. They're like, the Storm Shield change was actually bad for them because they don't have a great armor save. Like, Storm Shield is a buff if you're wearing, power armor or Terminator armor, because +1 save is amazing. But like, if you only have Carapace armor on for reasons that no one is really sure about, then +1 saved with 3-up armor is a lot less impressive. And and they can't perform actions, and they can't adventure charge, and they aren't core. So like, Wolfen got completely shit on, but they have the infantry keyword, which is what you want. Thunder Cav got all the buffs, but they're not infantry, which means that they don't get a lot of the cool things that you really want them to have. And the problem is that Space Wolf players justifiably want to play the things that make Space Wolves unique. They don't want to play Blood Angels in blue power armor, but the problem is that that's what Space Wolves do best with their actual rules. Because frankly, what I think that Space Wolf players need to do to make Space Wolves competitive is forget that the word wolf is even in the Codex. Take 3 Cyber Wolves and call it a day there. Like, from that point on, honestly, like, the best thing to do is ignore the fact that you have access to Thundercap, ignore the fact that you have access to Wolfen, be a successor chapter that just goes on murdering people in close combat and just taking infantry anyway. Even though you don't have an apothecary, you just kind of tough it out.
So what would you suggest the build be, then, if you're going to look at the Codex and just say, this is just Codex Space? Not Codex Space Wolf.
Yeah, this is just Codex Space.
Beat me to it. Codex Space. I wanted to jump in and say that.
But like, what would you take? Because when I went through the book, there are certain things that stand out to me that I mean, obviously, Thunderwolf Cav does stand out to me because there's a lot of strats and support to make them do the thing that they want to do. But there are units that have been in the codexes since 5th edition that kind of stand out to me. But when I was looking at the points, it still seems like a really steep points investment, and I'm talking about Blood Claws.
Yeah.
Is that something that you're thinking about, or like what are the units that you're thinking about when you're playing just Codex space?
When you're playing Codex space that doesn't have wolves, other than the 3 cyber wolves because they're like basically free. I mean, really, what you honestly want to look at is the fact that their super doctrine gives you the exploding 6s, which is really good. You can do a successor chapter for more exploding 6s, which is really good. Frankly, you don't need their base trait of the +1 to hit and heroic intervention because you've already got a 1 CP 6-inch heroic intervention strat, which means that no one's going to get within 3 inches of you for a heroic intervention anyway. And if they do, spend a command point, heroic them with something good, and just call it a day. But I think you honestly like go successor chapter exploding 6s +1 to hit, take exploding 6s as your super doctrine, and you go for just murderous weights of dice where you can honestly take like Grey Hunters or just Assault Intercessors because they vomit out attacks. Just a bunch of dice, every 6 to hit is 3 hits, get wrecked. And suddenly, like, you're going to do a lot of damage. And honestly, I would just take it's not Vanguard Veterans. It is Vanguard Veterans. I think they just gained the Wolfguard keyword. Jump pack dudes with Lightning Claws and Storm Shields. They have a really good Psychic Discipline, actually. Putting people into cover. Potentially Fight Last. You have a relic for Fight Last. Fight Last is very powerful when you're playing close combat armies, because if you don't have it, you're going to get countercharged or interrupted. And if you do have it, sometimes your opponent just folds. I think you lean into the Fight Last tech. You've got a good Psychic Discipline. You've got good relics. You take the Armor of Rust, I think, is the Fight Last one. And you can take that even as a successor chapter. And from that point, like, lean into a couple of strengths. And frankly, I actually like Redemptor Dreadnoughts a lot in Space Wolves. Just because when you roll like 5 or 6 attacks and then you get a 6 and suddenly you have 8 hits instead of 6, it's like, oh no. You can do a lot of cool things there. I like having a Chapter Master for full rerolls because when you have every 6 to hit is 3 hits and you're +1 to hit, you can throw, a 41 attack unit in, reroll all of your hits with Chapter Master, reroll everything 1 through 5, and you're going to end up with like 41 attacks, 60 something hits. And you don't need 2 damage at that point. Like White Scars, you just have enough attacks to wreck people.
That's pretty brutal. I didn't even think about doing a custom chapter, but that does make sense. Taking
the space now.
Yeah, true. So I know you mentioned Grey Hunters, but I do want to go back to Blood Claws real quick because they do have 1 attack base, +1 for Shock Assault, +1 for the Astartes Chainsword that you can give them, and then another one for Headstrong. Or is it Headstrong or is it Berserker Charge? No, it is Headstrong. Headstrong gives them another additional attack when they charge. So you're pumping out 4 attacks base, and they are 18 points a model, where I think the Assault Intercessor is 19 points per model.
Yep.
And they get...
it's really not bad.
Right on. Also, there's you mentioned the Psychers. I know that they have an aura of like cover. You can pay the command point to do an aura of -1 to hit as well. You can make an enemy unit -1 to hit. You also have an ability called Awaken. Where is it? I've got it on here. Awaken Senses or something like that. Where you can put a unit in the Assault Doctrine, just like how the Blood Priest from Blood Angels can do the exact same thing. So that might be something to look into. So Instincts Awoken is what it's called. It's a Warp Charge 6 ability.
Yeah, I don't think you need that spell because you've got like a 1 CP put a unit into Assault Doctrine.
Right.
But I think you lean into that, like lean into those strengths of the army, which because honestly, like, they gave Space Wolves a lot of different rules, and I think that the fluffier ones are also the worst ones. And honestly, like, just, we're going to be stereotypical here. Think of the Space Wolf players you've played against. At least half of them look like a Space Wolf. Like, at least half. And they're like, yeah, I just love my Space Wolves, like, I have a beard, I like have a t-shirt with a wolf on it, like howling at the moon, and I want to play my dudes on wolves. And I'm sorry, because like I totally get it. I want to play bikes in my White Scars, like I want I want to play like all of that cool stuff. Like Space Wolves are not built for that, and it feels bad that they made an army that's bad when you play it for the fluff.
That is really sad, honestly. So if
it is like I feel for them.
Yeah, so if we're hypothetically building a list here, what we would do, like a battalion, take a chapter master, would take a Primaris chaplain on bike for the extra charge range, and then
I'd take a Primaris chaplain.
Right on, and then a psyker with a Murderous Hurricane and I assume Tempest Wrath. So the fight last, and also the aura of I guess it's Stormcaller. Excuse me, Murderous Hurricane and Stormcaller for fight last and the cover save out in the open. And then
I might even Chief Librarian him so that you get a third power.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's not a bad
because
idea.
I like the fight last in Overwatch. I like the light cover. I like the -1 to hit. And then maybe even you can always potentially do the Tome of Macador to take Null Zone if you really want to. There's plenty of good things there.
Null Zone does help you against Archangels, and we know how much the Wolves loves fighting the Angels.
Love hitting Dark Angels. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, there's some benefit there.
Right, and then so you would take one or two 10-man squads of not Vanvet's Wolfguard with the Jump Pack, Storm Shield, Lightning Claw, just like how you would in the White Scars list.
Yeah, honestly, I also really like taking because I think a Wolfguard with a Jump Pack is the exact same points and stat line as a Vanguard veteran, so you just take that instead of a Vanguard veteran.
Right on.
And it's identical in every way.
Would you put Thunderhammers in any of these things? Because you do have the strat Keen Senses to ignore the modifier, so you can still get hitting on 2 Thunderhammers.
Yeah, you can. It's definitely easier to justify, especially with kind of a weight of 3-1 models around. Like you probably don't go pure Lightning Claws the way you do with White Scars. But you can add a couple heavier weapons, and again, the exploding 6s helps make up for these slightly less attacks. Because in White Scars, you just want as many dice as possible. But when every 6 to hit is 3 hits, and you've got full rerolls from Chapter Master, you can just start rerolling your Thunderhammer hits just to see if you land a 6. Because every 6 is just turbo, deep decking someone.
Right, and then for troops, you do a bunch of Assault Intercessors or Blood Claws if you want to take giant units, which you always could. They are hard to kill. They're 2-wound Marine with a bunch of attacks.
I'm personally willing to pay that extra single point per model for an Assault Intercessor just because you get access to all the Primaris stratagems
and fight twice.
And sometimes you transhuman and fight twice. And for 5 points a unit, that's usually something I can afford. But frankly, I'm usually content to just go for the Phobos Marines, just to get up the field quicker. Because as I mentioned, I think that they're just not as good at getting into close combat as other melee armies. So sometimes I want to have a couple things start closer so that I can be more aggressive with my characters. I like having that chaplain on bike too, who can potentially unlock the if he completes a charge, everyone near him gets to advance in charge, and then suddenly you're in a good spot. And suddenly you're now a fast melee army as soon as you unlock that. So I like having Phobos units that can, go in with him early so that he doesn't just charge something by himself, because he can move 21 inches in charge or some crap. And then, of course, he immediately dies because he's by himself. Like, I like having units nearby for that. Right. So I like taking, Incursors, Infiltrators. They're just good for missions. They still get AP 1. I think it's worth it.
Right on. And then how would you round out the list? Would you take, are Inceptors still a good thing to take? Would you take Long Fangs? What would you do to round out the amount of points, or would you just ally something in? Because I know that. Well, no, I guess you wouldn't ally something in because you want to have your Super Doctrine. We're building just for the exploding 6s. So yeah, how would you round out the list?
Honestly, I think that from there you do take some shooting. I like one Inceptor unit. Ignoring modifiers is pretty dope on any shooting unit. I like one unit of Inceptors, but they also do make good use of Redemptors, I think. Once you put Redemptors in, because you can put them in cover with the that spell, you can potentially make the -1 to hit the same way. And frankly, I think that that's enough. Once you get them to a 2-up save, their lack of an invuln is not nearly as bad. Because normally, 3-up armor, no invuln, you start getting hit by AP3 and you're not taking great saves. But when you start slapping them in light cover, I feel a lot better about Redemptors there.
Right on. And then I guess the Plasma Incinerator for just big, beefy, damage 3 shots.
Yeah, 5 points increase wasn't enough to make that bad. Honestly, you still rock out the plasma scepters.
Right on. Cool. I mean, that sounds like a pretty beefy list. I hope that maybe if somebody donates enough to Art of War, we could see that list on stream.
No.
Oh no, I would love
No,
to. No, stop. I would love to see this. I'm actually like legitimately interested in seeing how this would play on the table. I think you talk to Mark, get him to go all in on this idea, and we might see something like new, something that could be really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like what are the
honestly,
what are the detriments of playing this? You not being white scars?
I mean, you've got your normal. There's always the opportunity cost.
Yeah.
It just feels a little bit harder to unlock all of your stuff than some of the other melee chapters. But frankly, with Blood Angels kind of going down in stock, this does feel like actually a way to kill Dark Angels, because honestly, like if you have that exploding 6 full rerolls to hit all the Lightning Claws, it doesn't matter that Dark Angels are -1 damage and you win them on 4s. You just have Lightning Claws and a million hits, and that's honestly enough right there.
And if you did the Tome of Malkador and take Null Zone, you can that unit does fold whenever it loses its 4-up invul save.
Yeah, if you can take that away, you can be an Assault Doctrine any turn, even if you're going early, you can get a lot of work done.
Right on. I actually think this was pretty productive for Codex Space. It is a real shame. Codex Space. It's really it is a shame that you are punished for taking the Space Wolf specific units, because like
and
go ahead.
Oh no, I like making fun of Space Wolves. Like, this is no secret at all. However, I acknowledge, like, when you play an army that you like and like you can't run it the way that you envision it, that does feel bad. So it is a shame. I hope that they make Thundercav or Wolfen worth taking at some point in the future. Wolfen, just like, if you're not going to be core, do actions, or have a good save, it's like, what? Why are you here?
Why
they don't hit that hard, even though. Why even bring them? Yeah, so I would like to see some of those units get a little bit of love eventually. I just don't know when they're going to do it.
They also lost their 5-up Feel No Pain, right?
They also lost their 5-up Feel No Pain. I forgot about that. But yes, they don't have that anymore.
Bummer. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a slap right there.
Right on. Well, I hope you got some good ideas if you want to play your Space Wolves, but just hack off the wolf part. And Tim and Dan are going to talk about some Deathwatch.
All right. Yeah, I spent the last week kind of cramming and just basically I found several people I knew that on our team, and then in some of the communities, the Biff Pod community and our play group and everything. And I basically just, anyone who I knew had been passionate about Deathwatch, I was just like, hey, just tell me about your faction. And it was there's definitely kind of like a center mass where people were kind of like focusing on, but man, people were like all over the place. So it was, and it really, the first thing that stuck out is definitely a toolbox army, and it feels like you can really just kind of identify your play style and then mold the supplement to fit that. So I'll just launch into I guess, a brief overview for people who aren't familiar with Deathwatch, and then Dan, you and I can just kind of go back and forth and bounce ideas off each other. But the main thing that sets Deathwatch apart is they don't. They are the Xenos hunters, but they do more than that. They very much feel like kind of like almost like the special forces of the Space Marines. Their super doctrine, instead of getting an extra ability when their particular doctrine is active, like Salamander's +1 to wound or the White Scars +1 damage, they get to pick the order of their super doctrine, which to me like kind of feels like what doctrines should have been from the get-go rather than a forced rotation. But you could start off in tactical for turn 1 and then go into assault turn 2 and then go back into tactical to do some more shooting, and you could save your Devastator doctrine for like turn 4, if that's what you wanted. You could really basically adjust your game plan game by game. Their chapter tactic is 2 parts. One is they get to reroll 1s for melee hits versus Xenos armies. But the other one, the one that I think people are more familiar with, is after deployment. You select a battlefield role where it's headquarters, elite, troops, whatever. Everyone with the chapter tactic gets rerolls 1s to wound versus that role. The last thing that really kind of is the bread and butter of Deathwatch is the kill teams. They've actually got a bespoke kill team mechanic in 9th edition, where it's basically 4 different types of units. And they can actually be, I thought this was pretty cool, you can pay some points and you can upgrade them to reroll 1s to wound versus a battlefield roll. You say, okay, this unit, I want it to reroll, in the list building stage, I want to reroll wounds versus elites. Like, we're in a very elite heavy meta right now, lots of Terminator, stuff like that. I want to reroll ones versus elites. Or, hey, my Eradicator unit over here, I want them to reroll 1s to wound versus like vehicles, heavy support, transports, Lords of War, that kind of stuff. Or this unit of Outriders or Vanguard Bikes, I want to reroll 1s to wound versus troops. The troops and the heavy support / Lord of War ones, they cost a little bit more points, which is probably to balance out the fact that those ones will be active more often than the others. And then as a bonus, if you have selected, like let's say you selected troops to be your chapter tactic that you're rerolling 1s to wound against, any units that have the specialization of the upgrade to reroll 1s to wound versus that unit, they now actually get upgraded to full wound rerolls, which I think is just insane and is just incredible. Just, hey, you know what? You have a lot of troops, and now I'm just going to reroll wounds versus all your troops. So get wrecked. Special ammunition returns, which is with some small changes, and you can basically just pick your. It's kind of like when you pick the ammunition for the eliminators, but even more so. There's 4 different types. We'll go into a little bit. Unfortunately, they no longer work on Primaris weapons unless with a strat, and they don't work on Stormbolters anymore. Which, even though our wallets are thankful, that kind of sucks. The 4 kill teams, I'll just run through real quick, are the Proteus, which are kind of like all your firstborn Marines. The Fortis, which are like your Primaris, Intercessors, Assault Intercessors, Outriders, that kind of stuff. Indomitors, which is like the Gravis Marines, Heavy Intercessors, Aggressors, Inceptors, Eradicators. And then Spectrus, which is the Phobos guys, Infiltrators, Incursors, Reavers, Eliminators. And these guys got a lot of attention when the supplement first launched, because this is the only team where if you take one model, it kind of automatically confers as special rules to the entire squad. The other ones, they kind of like unlock the ability to do stuff with strats, but this is the one where it's kind of like, hey, you take an Infiltrator, the whole unit gets Omni Scramblers, or if you take a Helix Adept, the entire unit gets the Helix Adept Gauntlet rule. So that's the overview. Dan, I'm gonna call you out a little bit. What do you think of these guys? When you see Deathwatch, when you see your new stuff, what are you thinking immediately?
Yeah, so my kind of viewpoint is a little more on the macro. As far as there's a couple archetypes that I really enjoy for them, and where I think they really shine. And one is just the kill teams are your troop slot, so they're OBSEC. So you can make fairly expensive, but you can make like massive OBSEC kill teams that are like 10 Gravis bodies. Or there's a couple trains of thought where you can do a lot of firstborn Marines and get a really solid MSU core with all storm shields, and I can't think of the name right now. Combat squads. So you get 10-man squads if you're fighting something, or it gives you the flexibility of you can stay in large squads if the matchup dictates, or you can combat squad if the matchup dictates and cover the board in MSU. But honestly, like, the thing that appeals to me the most is every single unit in a Deathwatch kill team, if you build it right, is going to be efficient, and you can really trade and skirmish well because you have so many storm shields, which even in the Space Wolves we were talking about, how storm shields, when you have a 3-up armor base, storm shields take you to that 2-up armor, you got multi-wounds, you can get into cover, get that 1-up armor, like, you become really hard to move, which I like a lot. So in a game of durable OBSEC skirmishing to hold objectives, like, that's what Deathwatch does. And then there's kind of 2 macro philosophies to approach that. And one is with Gravis, and then one is with Firstborn with Storm Shields. So that was kind of my first blush. And Tim, I don't know if you had looked into that a whole lot. I know you got into a lot of the minutia, but you also talked with a lot of Deathwatch players. What do they kind of feel in that mindset, I guess?
Yeah, there's definitely two ways of going about it, and it felt like everyone I talked to kind of had like their pet kill team that they were kind of all about. I saw the one I saw that I thought was interesting was the combination of Spectre's kill teams with Eliminators and Helix Adepts. People were kind of running them actually with the las fusils, just because the actual sniping eliminators weren't really. People are kind of cold in snipers right now. I think we could kind of see snipers come back, because even though there are fewer characters and they're easier to die, the characters that are in the game are really powerful right now and tend to be filling multiple roles. Just due to, I think we're seeing a lot of lists where people bring like 3 characters max, but each of those characters has like 3 or 4 hats that they wear throughout the game, and taking one of those out early could really change the game plan. So, possible prediction, maybe we could see snipers come back, but I do kind of like the tech where they're running them with las fusils and literally just using them as a true heavy support. That just takes a tremendous amount of resource to dislodge, and eventually the opponent just decides it's just not worth their time when there's so many other things to worry about. Having +2 to your save, smoke screen stratagem on demand, and then you automatically pass the first failed save, that's some decent tech. The Indomitors kill team, with a combination of heavy intercessors when they become available. I know people are converting them. Eradicators and maybe a plasma scepter. I think it lets you fall back and shoot for a strat. We start getting into this, gets kind of expensive and a lot of resources involved. But if you take the 5-up invuln relic shield, and then a librarian for the 5-up feel no pain power, I mean, that point you have a lot of dudes with toughness 5, 3 wounds, access to the +1 save strat against damage 1 weaponry, and then a 5-up, 5-up. It gets really hard to kill. And then, lastly, the Fortis kill team, which is not the Fortis.
Fast,
yeah, go for it.
But I was just going to say, before we move on to the Fortis, I want to talk about the Indomitor a little bit.
That's the one I was going to talk to next. That's the one that I think everyone really likes is the Fortis. So you want to go ahead and jump? Why don't you go ahead and talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So what I was going to say is on the Indomitor with the all the Gravis. I like if you do 5 heavy intercessors and 5 plasma inceptors. Plasma inceptors are 18-inch range, and the heavy intercessors are going to slow them down. But there's the psychic power where if they don't move or they don't shoot or attack, whatever, they can't be shot unless the opponent gets within 12 inches. So you can, like you said, with all those defensive buffs, make them really hard to kill. But you can also move them onto an objective, hit them with that psychic power, and say, you have to get within 12 inches of me if you want to do anything. You'll kill, and then you have to chew through all those defensive buffs. You kill the heavy intercessors, and then my OBSEC plasma inceptors are just going to obliterate you because you had to get within their kill range. And guess what? They're still OBSEC on the objective. So it's like you're investing 400 and something points into that unit. It's not cheap. But it's still you're creating this scenario where, okay, I've got 400 points invested in a unit, and I'm okay if they never do anything, because if they don't, that means they're just scoring me points every single turn. And the second you want to come close enough to do something about it, I'm going to blow you up. And that's not a perfect answer, because there are some melee armies that are just going to sprint in there and just attack. That happens. But when it comes to skirmishing and dedicating light resources and stuff, you can't dedicate light resources to that. You have to all in them to blow that unit up. And they've got, like you said, you can have the 5 of invulnerable, you can have the 5 of feel no pain. You've got 15 ablative wounds before they even damage the first inceptor. So there's just a lot of bulk to chew through, and you have the rest of your army to play the game with. So it's just a positive trade, in my opinion, just by having that unit on the table. So that's one that I really like, and I wanted to just because you were on that train of thought, I wanted to jump into that. But if you wanted to hit that last kill team, and then we can talk about the firstborn kill team some more too.
Yep. Well, we actually we got the 2 more kill teams.
Okay.
I talked about the Spectrus, which is the Phobo, and then the Indomitor, which is the Chungus crew. Why don't you go ahead and take the other 2 and talk about the Proteus, which I know a lot of people are really hot on, and then finish up with the Fortis, which I think a lot of people prefer the Proteus to the Fortis, but I think Fortis still has a little bit of play. If you want to talk about those a little bit.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted there. So I'm terrible with the names, so forgive me as I pull this up real fast and make sure I get the names right.
Proteus, it's Proteus. Think of Proteus like first, which is the firstborn.
Okay.
And then I don't know where the name Fortis comes from, but that's the basically the Primaris / like intercessor one.
Okay. Yeah, so I really like the Proteus, so we'll just dive into that. So the Proteus kill team, you can take Black Shield, which I
don't think you can actually take Black Shield and Proteus. I think it has to be a Deathwatch veteran squad. I was actually going to specifically call that out as a downside against Proteus.
Gotcha, because I thought the Proteus had the Deathwatch veterans.
So it has the Deathwatch veterans, but there's no actual way to. I don't think there's an actual way to put the Black Shield in. I think the Black Shield can only be taken in the Deathwatch veteran data sheet.
Okay.
If you do the Proteus kill team, like it just takes the generic Deathwatch veterans.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, that's good to know then. But so Deathwatch veterans are just super flexible anyways, so we're good. You can of course take Storm Bolters if you want, just for high volume. You can take your standard Deathwatch bolt gun, which gets you the special issue ammunition, which we kind of talked about a little bit. You get the +1 damage sometimes, you get ignore cover sometimes, you get bonus range. Like, it's all flexible. And one of the strengths of Deathwatch is they're one of the armies that can still adapt at the table. So many armies now, you have to make all of your pregame decisions in list design. So having the flexibility of making game time decisions based on your opponent is just, it takes more practice, but it's more rewarding. So to me, that's one of the reasons I love the veterans, is just because you can still take your special issue ammo. You can combat squad if you want to. There's a couple things you can do. And of course, they can take storm shields. They got a whole bunch of weapons options. I'm not going to go over all of them. But the storm shields, of course, are just money right now. And then with them, you can take your Deathwatch Terminators, which can have Thunderhammer Storm Shield, so you can just tank for days with that 1-up save, 0-up in cover. You can take Vanguard Veterans, which can, again, take Storm Shields. So your whole army is 2-up saves when you have these Proteus kill teams. You can take...
Most importantly, you get the Teleport Homer as well, if you take that Terminator.
Thank you. I completely went past that. You can take Teleport Homer, which, again, mobility and flexibility is key in this game. Vanguard Veterans, you can give them the jump pack, so you've got... the 12-inch move, so your Terminator is in the back of the lines, but you're flying forward, you're keeping coherency, you can charge and kind of, you can yo-yo your units by using fast models hiding in cover out of line of sight. Then they move the 12 inches with their jump packs, they charge, and you're kind of pulling that Terminator forward with all the speed and charges of your Vanguard Veterans, who also can have lightning claws, so you can get your high volume of attacks. So you got all that flexibility in your infantry. And one of the keys here is you can also take your veteran bikers. And those bikers count as having the infantry keyword for moving through terrain. So you have Vanguard Veterans, who they move fast, but they have a small base, so keeping coherency can be difficult. You can also take your bikes. Now, those bikes have longer bases to keep you in coherency with your Terminators or with your normal veterans. And you can really just get this moving mass of durable bodies that want to get into combat, that have efficient shooting. And it just, and you can really shift into good positions. The whole thing is OBSEC, so your bikes have 3 wounds, they're OBSEC. Your Terminators have 3 wounds, and they're OBSEC. Like, they're not killing you quickly. You're getting where you want to on the board pretty quickly. You're not limited by your movement because you have your jump pack keywords. You've got your infantry keywords. Like, you just get where you want to go and survive, and you win skirmishes, and that's what this whole game's about. So I'm a huge fan of the Proteus kill team for all of those reasons. Tim, did I miss anything, like a highlight that you really like from them?
I'm trying to think. I think one of the biggest highlights that I really like is it. There's pretty much a way to get, I believe. I don't think you can do it with the Spectrus kill team, but with the other 3 kill teams, and we haven't really talked about the Fortis kill team that much. But you can get toughness 5 in 3 out of the 4 kill teams. And I apologize if I missed it for the Spectrus kill team, but I don't think you can get T5 into the Phobos kill team. But the Proteus, Fortis, and Indomitor, you can get T5, which is good because it's this tends to be a more elite army, even before you upgrade kill teams. It's not super uncommon to see 3 to 4 big units of troops, 2 characters, and then maybe you have like something in the fast attacker or heavy support slot, and then that's it. That's kind of the list, and you're really kind of relying on the combat squads to kind of get that unit count up. Which again, you kind of touched on this, and there's opportunity for skill expression by making the decisions at the table, and I think that's going to be something that maybe a newer player. Or player with low reps has a hard time leveraging, but I think someone very familiar with the faction, or just very adept at kind of adjusting for being able to envision how the game is going to play out, and being able to make those decisions, at, during, and before deployment. It's really, you're going to really be able to see them express their skill, and it's honestly, it's a little bit frightening and a little intimidating to think of going up against someone who has mastered this. But if you have the simplest way is just doing a kill team, and it's a 5 of this guy, 5 of this guy, and you're like, that's it. But you can also take kill team, and it's like, hey, 5 of this guy, because the first 5 guys are mandatory, but it's 5 of this guy, 2 of this guy, 2 of this guy, and 1 of that guy, and you can split it any way you want. Or you can just keep it whole. And I think you're going to see people that they really lean into that flexibility, and they're going to say, hey, I have this squad of 10, and it's like 5, 2, 2, and 1, the different data sheets. And they're like, well, the reason I've done it is because of X, X, and Y matchups, and they're going to be able to really be like, hey, I'm going to combat squad this way and this way for this matchup. I'm going to combat squad this way and this way for this matchup. And as it just adds another layer onto the multiple layers that are really in this book. And I think people are going to be kind of chewing on the bone of the Deathwatch supplement for years, honestly.
Yeah, like it has that much potential, and I don't have the book in front of me right now, so I don't remember specifically. But I believe, like, if you have the bike, like, you unlock different rules based on the models you have in the unit. So, like, I think the bike lets you fall back and still shoot, and the Vanguard Veteran lets you fall back and still charge. Or there's an interaction there. I don't remember the exact specifics, and I apologize. But you can set it up where you can kill team or combat squad your kill team and still keep all of the special rules in both kill teams. And that's the flexibility you were talking about in building your kill team. Is you can get your majority toughness 5, you can get your fallback and shoot, you can get your fallback and charge, you can get your teleport homers. Like, you can stack these kill teams to just be so incredibly flexible, all while still maintaining objective secured, which at the end of the day is like one of the best abilities in the game, the way the mission set is right now. But real fast, let's hit the Fortis kill team. I'll go over that real quick. I'm not personally a huge fan. I might be missing something, and obviously, Tim, if there's something you like here, let me know. But essentially, you start out with 5 intercessors. Of course, you can take the different intercessor weapons. They're obsec, no big, like, we know what intercessors do. You can take assault intercessors in the kill team, get some more volume of attack. Like, again, it doesn't suck. Intercessors are good. They're fairly durable. They're not overly expensive. Like, they're fine. But the flexibility is why you want these kill teams. And in the Fortis kill team, you can take Hellblasters and you can take Outriders. And, like, Hellblasters, to me, are kind of like a fringe choice. They're on the cusp. I think there's play with them in Dark Angels, but Plasma Inceptors are just, in my opinion, better, and I think that's kind of the popular opinion anyways. And then Outriders, again, are cool, but they're expensive. They're like 50 points a model. I don't hate them, but I don't love this kill team. It's more expensive, and I think the veteran squads from the Proteus do it better. So that's my opinion.
I'm in agreement there. Yeah, you start with 5 intercessors, and I love how one of the options for like the additional guys you can add to it, like as a specialization, is an assault intercessor, which like if it wasn't for the stratagem, like probably wouldn't even be a separate data sheet. You know, it's literally it's an intercessor but with a chainsword and a pistol. You know, so it doesn't really add extra tech. You know, like I'm fluff for like a fluff perspective. I'm sure it unlocks like possibly unlocks stratagems or something like that. I don't think they can do the fight again. I don't think you can take the Fortis kill team, add a single intercessor, and get the fight against stratagem. But I actually just thought of that. I'd have to look into that. But even then, I don't think that does enough to justify it. You get an extra wound when you have the Outriders in there. You know, they're a little bit chunkier, and that's kind of cool. But the kill team doesn't have storm shields in it. But you do get access to transhuman. But again, transhuman is super cool. It feels a little less efficient to use transhuman when on T5 than it does T4. But there are still times when you want it. But I think I agree with you. I think the Proteus kill team overall just gives you more. Just the veteran bikers, and then having access to the storm shields as well, and then easier access to the special issue ammunition. I like that a lot. And then one of the things I think that I really like, if I was going to mess around with Deathwatch, is honestly just messing around with just taking the stuff that's good. Like I actually don't. I like I don't normally like Eradicators, but I like them in Raven Guard, and I like them here just because being able to deep strike them, not outflank, but like actually deep strike them, I think it solves a lot of their issues. Basically, they're slow and they have a 24-inch range.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think before you jump in real quick, and I'll just finish this thought and I'll pass it over. I like the idea of just being like, hey, here's 5 intercessors and 5 eradicators, and they've been upgraded to reroll wounds against Lords of War, vehicles, heavy support. Here's 5 heavy intercessors and 5 Vanguard vets, and they've been upgraded to reroll wounds versus like elites, because there's always Terminators running around, stuff like that, you know, or reroll wounds versus troops. And instead of just trying to build in like a ton of jank, you're just kind of like, hey, I'm just going to take these units that I really like and these units I know are proven. I'm going to make them OBSEC. I'm going to upgrade them to reroll wounds. And I honestly think that you can just kind of take instead of taking the the jank and the toolbox approach, you can just take the blunt hammer and be like, hey, you know what? Eradicators, if you can deliver them, are good, and I'm going to make them reroll wounds. Plasma Scepters are good. I'm going to make them OBSEC, and I'm going to make them reroll wounds. You know, like I think you can just kind of just get away by taking the good stuff. Marines are kind of the thing I noticed with Deathwatch is they don't like to take vehicles, and they kind of struggled in 8th edition with anti-armor. But now they have access to a much deeper roster than they had before, and Marines are kind of only taking infantry anyhow because of the new core rules mechanic. So a lot of the drawbacks that Deathwatch used to have just don't apply anymore. So now you can build these these crazy Proteus kill teams with all this jank and this tools and this customization, whatever. You can just say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna take these chunky boys that are good and do a lot of damage, and I'm seeing a lot of this, and this in the meta, and so I'm going to spend the extra points to make them reroll wounds against those things. And then you just go out there and you just play games, and you don't do any inspiring galaxy brain plays, but you also you play conservatively, and you have a consistent, measured style approach to the game. You minimize your mistakes, and you reroll wounds against everything while being really tough. That's going to win you games, man.
Yeah, and what I like is the army is kind of, it's the type where the army will grow as you grow as a player. So you can start it out as like you described, take all the good stuff. It's a very straightforward army. I'm just maximizing my efficiency, and like depending on your meta, that'll win RTTs. That'll get you to good placements and GTs if you just practice that army and get to know that army really well. And then as you get better as a player and you start finding your shortcomings, you go back to the book, and in this book there are going to be answers for those shortcomings. And you don't want to over specialize and then just lose to the general lists, but you can figure out like, hey, I have issues with X. Like maybe like for some reason there's an Imperial Knight skew that's just messing me up. So I'm definitely going to make sure I tech my Eradicators and really get an emphasis, like you said, on getting rerolls to wounds on the Eradicators. That's worth the investment. Maybe if you weren't doing that before, whatever, like you can go back and find the efficiencies that you want to make up for what your meta's doing and make up for the shortcomings of the list as you get reps. There's all of that flexibility built in. So I had actually prepared a list idea because that's my thought process. I always like write lists and then kind of go back. It's weird. It's how my mind works. But I had a list idea I wanted to bounce off of you, Tim. And there's a little bit of flexibility because I personally really want to get a librarian in the list. I don't have the points yet, but it's kind of necessary for the Gravis kill team. So I'll rattle it off and then we can talk about it. So and this list was heavily influenced by one of our good friends, Jeff Beery. He's focused heavily on the Firstborn. I just made some tweaks because I love the one Gravis unit. So the list is a captain on a bike, a chaplain on a bike, and that the chaplain is upgraded with the Master of Sanctity and all that. Then I have 3 Proteus kill teams with veterans with Bolt Gun Storm Shield, 2 Vanguard veterans, Lightning Claw Storm Shield, and then 3 veteran bikers with Chainswords. So just 3 of those right off rip. And then I have the Gravis kill team I was talking about with the 5 Heavy Intercessors and the 5 Plasma Inceptors, a Primaris Apothecary, and then a 6-man Eradicator squad and a 3-man Eradicator squad. And there's a couple points to play with in that list. So essentially the idea is you combat squad the 3 Proteus kill teams, go exist everywhere. You deep strike your Eradicators, and then like I was talking about, you have your huge Gravis bomb that exists in the middle of the table, and you dare people to come close to it. And I want the Librarian for that 5-up Feel No Pain, but I've got the Apothecary right now. They're the same points, but that's the list that I really like, that I want to try to get on the table and try out. And I'm curious what your thoughts are to that list, Tim.
I mean, it seems like it has all the tools. So you kind of ran through the theme of how it plays and everything. I guess I would just I have a kind of a system that I go through when I analyze my own lists. I would say go through each of like the main entries and just tell me kind of like how do they score you the primary, how do they score the secondary, and why you took them that unit over something else.
Yeah, so it's really it's almost just simplicity, because one, while we stand we fight, they have to wipe out, if you combat squad, both sides. So you can really hide 2 of the Proteus kill teams. Well, sorry, one of the Eradicators is going to be a while we stand. Yep. Nope. Actually, I apologize. So the 6-man Eradicator squad is 270 points. The Proteus kill team is 271 points. So it is Proteus that's going to be your while we stand targets. So of course the Gravis squad, your whole game plan is to keep that thing alive. So that's one of your while we stands, and then 2 Proteus kill teams. You combat squad, you do what you need to do, and then you take half of each of your 2 units you nominate, and you're just more cagey with them to keep them alive. So you can really dictate like how your opponent has to engage you to try to take down your while we stand, and you can trade that and trade those 5 points to maybe get an extra 10 points somewhere else. It again just creates a flexibility in a trade scenario. You're surprisingly fast with your bikes and your Vanguard veterans, so like you unlock things like engage on all fronts and similar And then the primary is kind of, again, I don't want to be overly simplistic, but you're fast, durable, and good at skirmishing with a hyper durable castle unit. So most missions, you start on 1 or 2 objectives in your deployment zone, and then everything else can just go skirmish over the middle. And like, you've got volume of attacks and shots to deal with low save hordes. You've got the high volume of obsec for other elite armies. Like, you probably don't want to take on like a Dark Angel's Terminator blob on one objective, but you're also fast enough to go away from that objective and go contest the others and set up to even threaten the objectives in the opponent's deployment zone. So like, the way that you play the primary is, I would say, almost like a slower, bulkier Harlequin's army, where you don't have all the same movement shenanigans, but you just have the ability to go steal an objective from something they didn't have the resources to dedicate to, and you can just go steal that, chop their primary down for a turn, buff your primary for a turn, and then you're durable enough and fast enough to kind of just move back and dictate the score and just keep yourself ahead. And the secondary is like engage on all fronts, and while we stand we fight play into that exact same play style. So it's I know I've said it's kind of simplistic, but I've talked about it for 10 minutes, but that's kind of the tempo and flow of how that list would function.
I mean, it sounds good. I made a list myself last night, and granted, it's probably not even close to being a good Deathwatch list, but it was just something simple. And I took the secondary approach where I just basically just took stuff I like, and it was just a simple battalion with a captain, the Reaver. I actually made the captain a Phobos armor, so I can give him shoot and fade, so I can move his reroll around. And the lieutenant is the Lieutenant Reaver armor. Just access to like the Terror Troop stratagem. And then I did 2 Proteus kill teams, and I split those halfway down the middle between veterans with bolt guns and storm shields, and Vanguard vets with storm shields and lightning claws. And then I actually did 2 Spectrus kill teams with the again two squads of 10 split halfway down the middle between eliminators with last fusils and the infiltrators, and then I paid for the Helix Adept, and then that kind of gives me 4 squads, 2 with 3 last fusils, and 2 with 2. And I actually haven't decided how I'm going to combat squad, because I think when you combat squad them, I think only one squad gets the Helix Adept rule. It's something I want to look into, but I think there's some good play there. Just basically kind of have your last fusel, your flat 3 damage, heavy support, with pretty much if you're in cover, you have +2 to your save, and you're ignoring the first failed save. And if something really scary shoots at you, that maybe it has like low number of shots or something like that, you can pop smokescreen for -1 to be shot at. I think at some point your opponent would decide it's not worth their time. And then the Primaris Apothecary, Selfless Healer, Vox Spiritum, just because he's in every single Marine list right now, except for Codex Space, but he's everywhere else. And I actually went ahead and gave him because this is something that Deathwatch have access to, you can take a normal Space Marines Codex Warlord trait. So I took the Ultramarines Warlord trait, which is Adept of the Codex. Gives you extra CP, and then I actually have a company champion, just 55 points, and and I took the Dominus Aegis, which is the 5-up invuln relic, and I was considering just putting that as extra layer defense for my last Fusel guys, and then I rounded it up with just 5 Inceptors, 5 Blade Guard veterans, and a Blade Guard Ancient, and it doesn't seem optimized, but it has units that I like, and as far as Deathwatch goes, it seems like a comfortable starting place to play, to kind of, as you said, grow with the faction, but is strong enough and it's built on strong enough data sheets where it will just, honestly, if I make smart decisions with the units I have, because I played Marines, I know what all these units do, even being less familiar with Deathwatch. If I know when and where to combat squad and when and where to put stuff in reserves versus not, and play smart decisions, that's And then now I have all these great units that are OBSEC. I mean, hell, I can do a lot with OBSEC Vanguard vets.
Oh yeah.
I think that's strong enough where it'll definitely win games, and it's a good starting point to kind of grow with the faction.
Yeah, and it's cool because it's a completely different approach to the same theory of having just uncomfortably difficult units to kill that makes it hard to trade into. And honestly, like that tempo, as like the more I play the game and the more I get acclimated to 9th edition missions, like it's all about tempo and creating scenarios where, one, if your opponent misjudges your durability, they expose themselves without succeeding in their trade, and you can really get even more efficiency in your trading. Which, when we get to talking about the tournament, Will and I went to yesterday, I'll touch on that for just a second. But just there's so much. If your opponent overestimates their kill power and fails, like, you can completely win a game on one poor decision, and Deathwatch have the tools to just be that surprisingly durable OBSEC. And again, our lists were basically completely different with a lot of the same theory in how to win the game. And that's one of the strengths of Deathwatch, is how flexible they are.
Yeah, I'd say we probably just about wrapped through the end of this.
Yeah.
Real quick, I just wanted to kind of just bounce off, as I have the book in front of me. We didn't really talk about warlord trees, psychic trees, and secondaries and that kind of stuff. I'm going to talk about some of these real quick. As I said, Paragon of the Chapter is one I took on my list. I really like it because you can select a warlord trait from the Codex Space Marines warlord trait. Like, Ultramarine, Salamanders, what have you. I do like how there's a aura ability where you can have a Deathwatch core character that performing an action with the assistance of the Warlord. They can make ranged attacks without the action failing. I think in an army as elite as this, you don't really. I don't know if Deathwatch can take servitors. I assume they can, but sometimes you just don't have the points. You just straight up don't have the points. And I think a list or a faction like this where you just have a bunch of elite stuff and you can't really afford like a several hundred point unit to be out of the fight, being able to do actions, like being able to just move forward and do your scramblers and still shoot, is incredible value. And I don't think people are talking about this enough. Castellan of the Black Vault, you can actually take a special issue war gear and put it on that warlord or character, even if he already has a relic. Which I think is huge because basically you can take you can build a kind of like a beat stick character and put a good relic on a good war trait or whatever, and you can basically then mastercraft the weapon as well, as long as it isn't a relic weapon.
You're gonna mastercraft a Xenos Phase Blade?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm thinking about. I think it's very cool if you want to build a beat stick. Some of the stratagems we talked about. If you have certain units or models in your list, it unlocks access stratagems like fallback or whatever. I think my two favorite stratagems are priority doctrine adoption, which is basically you can, instead of paying 2 CP to give your unit all doctrines, you spend 1 CP to give them one of your choice. I love that one, and I love the one where you can basically on demand in your command phase, you can pick a chapter tactic from Codex Space Marines, and what immediately jumps in my mind is White Scars. Just being able to, advance and charge or fall back and charge on demand opens up a lot. Because I think people are going to see all these big units, like maybe you have like this big Indomitor shooting unit or a Spectrus unit with Eliminators, and they're like, oh, I'm going to tag it. And you're like, well, no, I'm going to fall back and charge or whatever, maybe not get to shoot, but I get to fall back and charge.
Or you could choose Ultramarines and fall back and shoot.
Yeah, that's a good point. Exactly. Again, this is where we're talking about like learning the army. Like there's just, I know that I'm only scratching the surface here. And then as far as like the relics, I think Beacon and Jealous, and then the Dominus Aegis. Those are the two that stand out to me. Dan, were there any relics that really stood out to you?
I think honestly the big thing was the master crafting the Xeno phase sword was like that big damage output potential. Getting that increase was nice. And then I believe can't you also I think is there a way to take the base Codex Space Marine relic so like you can make a Smash Captain with Teeth of Terra basically still? I believe that's a thing you can do.
Yeah, you can do that. You can. I don't think you can. You can't mastercraft it.
Yeah,
I don't think
you can't mastercraft
still
the
a
Teeth of Terra because it's a relic, but still like so you can have like even if you want, you can go with that character heavy build and do a Xenophase Blade mastercrafted and a Teeth of Terra captain. So you get both of those, and like I've got again a bunch of durable obsec, and then I've got little killy characters hidden throughout. So like I didn't dive super deep into all the minutia of the relics because there's just so much to condense and absorb from this Deathwatch book that I unfortunately just didn't have the time this week to get into all of that minutia. But just on the surface level, how flexible your relic options are, again with master crafting and Teeth of Terra, things like that. Like there's a lot of good potential.
Yeah, and then just the two I was talking about. Just so we can be, just for the sake of clarity, the Beak Angelus, as long as the bear didn't arrive from reserves that turn, you can take a unit of Deathwatch Infantry or Deathwatch Bikers and set them up within 6 inches of the bear, 9 inches away from enemy models. And I don't know if it was FAQ, but I think it was FAQ that you can't pull stuff out of reserves turn 1. I wouldn't have played it like that anyhow, but you can pull something from your backfield and move it up.
Like
which I think
eradicators.
Exactly. And then it's still, as long as they started on the board somewhere safe, it's functionally a turn 1 deep strike. It's just they're already on the board. It's almost like a redeploy. The Dominus Aegis, you can do it with a Storm Shield, Relic Shield, or Combat Shield, which is why I put it on the Company Champion, because it was the cheapest way to get the guy. And you add 1 to the armor saving throws, and then any unit within 6 inches of the bearer, they have a 5-up invuln. And that pairs very nicely with the power for the 5-up Hill and Pain. And then one thing I thought was a cute combo. Peter the Falcon actually brought it to my attention. I don't know if I would actually build into it, but I did think it was hilarious that Artificer Bolt Catch. It's one of the special issue ones. You can basically take bolt weapons that the bearer is equipped with, and they gain a special issue ammunition ability. And you can put it on a Centurion Sergeant to give a Centurion Sergeant, 6 to 12 special ammunition shots. I just kind of thought that was hilarious.
Oh my god, that sounds brutal.
The Xenopurge, it's cute. I don't think it's built around, but it is kind of funny. I mean, it's like one guy, but it is kind of hilarious. The Xenopurge Discipline, man, it's up until we saw Dark Angels, I thought this was probably one of the best psychic trees in the game. You already talked about the one where like a unit cannot be targeted or basically interacted with unless they're within 12 inches. And then I talked about the Feel No Pain spell, but I mean there is a lot of them. Like you can subtract 1 from the attack characteristic of models in a unit, and then they can only declare the closest enemy unit for a charge. You can basically you can turn off auras. Like there's a lot of good spells here.
Yeah, so that one is Severance. You deal a mortal wound, and then you reduce the range of the aura by 3 inches, which, I mean, doesn't seem like a lot, but it really affects placement. And, like, Death Guard have auras that are only, like, 3 inches. So a 0-inch aura is the same as turning it off, and then if, like, your opponent's not savvy to that, and they're setting stuff up with 6-inch auras, like Space Wolves have a bunch of 6-inch aura stuff. You can just go out there and say, great, it's 3 inches now. Space Marines have the Warlord trait aura for OBSEC. I believe that's a 6-inch aura. You hit that to 3 inches, and suddenly all these Terminators or whatever your opponent has lose OBSEC. You sneak a kill team on there, you steal the objective, you tank them 5-10 points on primary. Like that can just win you the game by reducing an aura by 3 inches. So like that's kind of a big deal.
Just to jump in real quick. I was going to say the Master Apothecary aura is also 3 inches.
Yeah, so I think it technically reduces it to 0, turns it off. Although we all know that guy's running with the Vox Spiritum anyhow.
Right, but still, it's the thing.
Yeah, no, but I mean, if they're not, it's just kind of like, well, I guess you're not getting it. But going since a lot of the auras are kind of based on multiples of 3, like 3, 6, and 9. Every time you double the radius of an aura, you quadruple the area of effect for that aura. Like you go from 6-inch radius of an aura to 9-inch, you quadruple the area of effect, which is huge for affecting placement. And we're not even considering the base size of the model. Add that on as well. So going from 3 to 6 or 6 to 9 doesn't seem like a big deal, or vice versa, but it really is. If you've cut one of someone's auras from 6 inches to 3 inches, you've now quartered the area of effect for that aura, which is huge, especially if maybe they were trying to leverage a slow character's aura with a fast unit, and now they just kind of can't. You know what I mean? So I like that a lot.
And that's a huge deal for things like Harlequins too. That Shadow Seer, he's buying a relic to get that 9-inch aura for limiting your range, limiting your giving you -1 to wound, all that stuff. Like if you just smack that Shadow Seer with -3-inch aura, and suddenly the troops are out of the defensive auras, you pick up Harlequin troops by accident at that point. Like it becomes so easy to kill them when they lose those debuffs. Like that's the type of psychic power that could take a tight matchup to an easy win. And like it can't be stated enough how strong interrupting what your opponent wants to do can be. So yeah, that's so we don't. Sorry, I just spaghettied all over myself.
That's all right. I'll step in real quick. Before we finish, I just want to talk about the 2 of the secondaries that stood out, and then we'll wrap it up and we'll talk about our games. So that way we can wrap this episode up because we're at 1 hour and 10 minutes right now. Yeah. There's one where they have 4 of them, and there's 2 that I really like. One is your opponent selects 2 battlefield roles that they have in their army, so they can't. If they're playing all knights, they can't be like, ha ha ha, I'm selecting a flyer and transports. It's like, no, it has to be in your army. But they select 2 battlefield roles in their army, and you select 1, and then you get 1 point for each of those you kill, up to 5 per battlefield role. So they could select elites, HQs, and then you select like troops or transports, whatever. And then you can be like, okay, well, I killed 5 things of troops, or I killed 5 elites, whatever. And that seems like situationally, if you're really struggling for that 3rd secondary, that seems like a good one to take. The other one is Xenos, and I'm hoping all the Xenos books are good, because this is kind of crazy. It's just every time you kill a Xenos unit, you get a point. That's the secondary. Like Tau. We know Tau is running rampant over the meta right now. Well, guess what? Every time you kill a Tau unit, you get a point. Just straight up. Kill a Tau unit, get a point. Kill a Tau unit, get a point. If the rest of the Xenos books become the way that like Necrons are, then like, yeah, okay, this seems a little bit less over the top. But like right now, it's kind of like I don't see how you get anything less than 10 points on this if you're matched up against Xenos army. It's just literally fire and forget. So let's go ahead and just end it there. I think we've only scratched the surface, but I feel like that was a really good, productive talk about Deathwatch. Yeah, and let's talk about the closing thoughts, Dan, before we move on.
Yeah, gotcha. What I was going to say is like definitely go in and read all of the psychic powers, because like every single one has like situational utility, and I think is a very good tree. Again, the secondaries, like having multiple secondaries, I've been saying it the whole time, it's all about flexibility. Those secondaries give you a ton of flexibility. It's just, yeah, so the summary is what we said earlier. It's a highly flexible army that can grow and adapt as your skill as a player shifts and changes. So you can stay improving, and your army improves with you at the same pace. And so to me, that is what I want in a competitive army. I don't want to play this army, hit a ceiling, and realize, oh crap, I'm done. I want to be able to play this army, hit my ceiling, and say, all right, I can make these changes, and let's keep going. So I love the army for that reason.
Yeah, I think you're going to see Deathwatch resurfacing again and again over the next couple of years. So let's go ahead and let's talk about practice games play. It's been 2 weeks since we recorded. I know a lot of us are considering going to a GT here soon, or various RTTs. We've been doing some practice games, playtesting in the past 2 weeks. So John, why don't you go ahead and lead us off with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I haven't been to an event in quite a few months, but I've been getting my practice games. Couple games a week, same as always. Really, the last couple weeks, I've been focusing on Tyranids and Knights, and of course, Dark Angels. Dark Angels are the exact same as you would expect, which is that they can feel really oppressive if your opponent doesn't have like tailor-made things to deal with them. The Terminator brick for me has been pretty great. The only practice game where they've actually died has been getting multi-charged by 2 Sanguinary Guard units after Null Zone passed 2 turns in a row, and that was how they died eventually. Was just and but that's so much effort that like I don't even mind losing a 370 point squad at that point. But even so, the Tyranids have felt really, really good for me. Once I got my Demacarons painted up, as well, started working through, some of the units that got a lot cheaper. Like I got 30 Devil Gaunts painted up, so I finally have kind of the list that was, I think pioneered by Colin Sherman and of Biff Pod and Alex Dougal, one of the Art of War coaches. I've finally got that up and running. They felt really good in practice so far. And as well, honestly, I'm just liking my Knights. Knights are big stompy robots, and so many people are just not actually ready to kill them. Where if you think like, oh yeah, I've got like 2 squads of multi-melta attack bikes in my list, I can kill Knights. No, you can kill a Knight. You cannot kill Knights. And trust me, the second those things pop out, they are gone. I'm actually 4-0 with my Imperial Knights right now, and what is honestly relatively tough competition. I put AdMech allies in for one game. Bombers felt really good. You can do a lot of stuff with Imperium still, but I'm just pretty happy with what I got. I haven't been playing much of the White Scars or the other Space Marine chapters. Just did a couple Dark Angel games to get them under my belt, make sure I know what that army's about. And I feel pretty good about Dark Angel's place in the meta. They are silly pants strong, but they are still limited by speed and the number of mobile units, so they're definitely not unbeatable. I've definitely felt like there were games that I could lose there. But honestly, I've just been loving playing Tyranids and Knights, just, trying these, more unique armies that have not been seeing play much and just bring different problems than people are used to answering, because a lot of people are used to answering the same set of problems. And as good as Dark Angels are, I feel like I'm going to, pose the same question that you've had to solve before. It's just a step more complicated because I'm a little bit tougher. Like, I think that Dark Angels bring the same problems that Death Guard do. They just do it a little bit better with a Talonmaster behind. And that's strong. That's very strong. You can win tournaments with that. And you can also make, some fun lists with Dark Angels. But I've been more enjoying Knights and Tyranids because they just bring completely different questions where a lot of people forgot what Knights do. And when Knights run forward and start tagging ruins and seeing through the windows because they touch the darn thing, suddenly the firepower Knight puts out is a very, very real. I played against Black Templars. You put as many things behind a ruin as possible. And by the time I ran up and, started touching ruins and just looking through windows, I think I scooped up like 5 Blade Guard, 5 Assault Terminators in my shooting phase. And I did that and then declared charges. And it got rough really fast.
Yeah, I think anyone who's... Some people may have, it might have gone on the radar for some people, but anyone who's been paying attention, I think, has kind of noticed that the Forge World units, the Forge World book across the board, really low-key shook up the game, and I don't think people really realize that. Mostly because there's not a lot of events going on right now. It's just not a big enough sample size, and the fact that we've been drinking from a fire hose of rules updates lately. But Tyranids got... it feels like Tyranids got the most love of anyone else from the Forge World book. I would say Custodies are kind of up there too, but that's only because they have so many data sheets that are affected by that. But Tyranids feel like they really got some love. But even amongst those people, I think the other thing that people aren't talking about is the Bring It Down changes and the Abhor the Witch changes also affected Tyranids positively. So it's just the benefit of getting those big units, the Daimokaran, the Hero Jewels, even the Harridan, getting all of that in addition to the two of the most punishing secondaries and the most commonly maxed secondaries when they're taken, getting reduced in effectiveness against Tyranids. That's nothing but upside. Will, what about you?
So I did get one practice game against Dark Angels after the last time that we did our little show, and I did lose that game. I'm still playing guard. The Terminators only really killed guardsmen. That's all I gave the Terminators to fight. What really did the heavy lifting was the multi-melta attack bikes. When they have access to the 6-up Finno Pain, when they have access to a 4-up Invul Save, they're really hard to get rid of. And there was one instance in the game where I rolled 11 shots with my Manticore and missed every single shot. And that was really hard for me to swallow. But I kept the game close, and I have a game plan for him, essentially. I did change my list a little bit for the RTT that I went to yesterday. Instead of running a Wyvern, I got rid of it, put in 2 double heavy flamer chimeras, and moved 3 of my guardsman squads into a 27-man conscript squad to make up for the points. And so yesterday, me and Dan went to Strange Realms in Tampa for an RTT that he mentioned earlier that was run by Lewis. And I went 2-1 there. I played against 2 kind of newer guys. One guy was playing Blood Angels. He didn't, he had Death Company, got first turn and didn't use Forlorn Fury. So I kind of knew what the game was going to be like. And so I won that one. The second game was against Deathwatch, and Jeff has been beating my breaks off with Deathwatch, so I took that guy seriously up until 2 turns afterwards, and then I realized, I'm in a really good spot. I can kind of chill out. And then my last game was against Necrons with the all OBSEC, move 6 inches before the game starts. He got the first turn. I got locked in my deployment zone, and he beat me on primaries. So 2-1. I wasn't too happy with my performance, but I do like the list. Yeah, that's it. I mean, nothing too crazy, nothing learned really. Just going through the motions, getting ready for the GT for next weekend.
Dan, I think you were at the same RTT. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I essentially I've been and I saw in the YouTube comments getting made fun of because I army hop a bunch. And I've been army hopping a little bit, just trying to figure out what is jiving with me for 9th edition. So I decided to take the Harlequins out. Plus, Will had gotten them to battle ready. So I was going to make sure I got the full points and everything. So I took the Harlequins, and it was a ton of fun. They're a really I don't think they're as good as they were a couple months ago, just with the FAQ changes. All right, so yeah, my first round opponent was a Craft World player. He had a crazy MSU style build. That game I was actually super nervous about just because of the Eldar firepower is really good at killing other Eldar. But I got to go first, and I went with a gambit play of just going all in. He hadn't screened his characters super heavy, so it was Dawn of War, so I was able to move advance, get my fusion boats just right up on his line, double move my attack, or not attack bikes, but double move my bikes to be right next to those characters. I blew up the screens, charged into the characters, put all my attacks into his Phoenix Gem, blew up, killed a bunch of his characters. So I'm fighting against a psychic MSU LR build. He cast 1 power all game. So that went really well for me. I won that one. So my next game was against Dave Ozawa, who I have a ton of respect for as a player. He actually, my first GT I won was against Dave on top table. He's always just right around the top tables. He does really well. And he's playing Space Wolves, which fortunately we had talked about wanting to cover Space Wolves in this podcast, but I didn't study them as much as I needed to. So I was able to talk to Will a little bit, get an idea of what he was planning on doing. And long story short, I've got a shit ton of Haywire. He's got Redemptor Dreads. he hides a little too far back, and I was able to just control the board and dictate trades. So I won that one. And then I went against Death Guard for my round 3, and I lost that one, so I went 2-1. And the thing I wanted to touch on that is sometimes, like, just because something should work 90% of the time, if it's a fail point where if you make that decision and it fails, you're going to lose. Like, don't make that decision. Just play the safer game. I was impatient. I'm fighting against Mortarion. I have 3 fusion boats, and I've got one of my squads of troops. So I should be able to just fly in there, do a ton of damage. I know Mortarion's super durable, but he's right in front of my lines. Dedicate all this stuff, kill Mortarion. I'll take some return fire. I oversaturate the board, and then I can spread out. That's my thought process. The thing is sometimes Mortarion makes saves. And Mortarion made saves, and he lives with 5 wounds. And I'm like, okay, I should be able to survive this, no big deal. Turn 2, I dedicate 2 fusion boats because I was able to fire fade 1 and kind of manipulate placement for the other one to keep him safe. And so turn 2, Mortarion lives with 4 wounds. I only deal 1 wound. And at that point, I had stayed too clumped up, and Mortarion is able to get into my lines. My whole army becomes toughness 2. You're just not surviving that. And so I have superior mobility. I could have just played on the outskirts, skirmishing on objectives, and taken a more delicate approach to this matchup. But instead, I tried to match brute force with brute force, and I don't have the volume to hit the bell curve, and dice spiked, and I lost. So that was a big reminder for me, is to, just because something should work out, it doesn't always work out. You might fail a 3-inch charge with a reroll. That can still happen. That's in the cards. So plan on that. And I was flying high, had a really good event, and didn't take into account the fail point, and it cost me the game and probably second place in the event. So that was kind of the thing I took out of it, was a reminder to stay cautious and don't get cocky.
All right. Yeah, for me, it's been mostly just working on. We have the GT coming up soon. Actually, about a week from this recording, the Salt Classic it's at the game store. Probably 3 minutes from my house, and it's going to be a GT slash grand opening of their new location. And I've seen pictures. I've seen them doing the renovations over the past 6 months, stuff like that. And it's a big space, and the table's going to be nice and far apart. So I'm very excited. I'll have the GT, and basically are taking as many precautions as they can. And I'm very excited to get to see some friends I haven't played with in a while. But I've been rocking the same list for probably almost a month now, and I've just been working on just getting repetitions with this list, because at this point I feel like my list, it doesn't feel like it techs hard against anything, but it feels like it can kind of just do its own thing, and it can play the primary regardless of what's across from it. And I plan to just play with this list until either I get a new book or until something becomes so prevalent in the meta that I literally can't deal with it anymore. And I can't adjust simply playstyle or player skill. But the real neat thing is basically I actually, when I was going to go a little off topic here, when I was doing the family budget for my household and everything, I basically schooled myself up on using Microsoft Excel and everything, and I actually built a little matrix to keep track of all my games. And it was kind of neat because I was going through. The best part about it is I basically do it in intervals of 10, and then I go back and I look at all the metrics from it. So my last 10, I had 10 games in this week against several players from the Miami Meta Play group. I played Scorched Earth 3 times. I played Battle Lines 3 times. Sweep and Clear twice. Scouring once, and Overrun once. I went first, literally 50% of the time. Second, 50% of the time. My win rate was a little bit higher going second than it was going first. Again, it's sample size of 10, so can't really look too much into it. also being playtesting games. There were certain things I was trying to do. The primary points, I scored an average of 27.5 primary points, and I scored an average of 32 secondary points. So again, only 10 games, but it immediately jumped out as a spot to improve. That's basically with the paint score. That is just a little bit, like right around 70 points on average. A little bit more, 74 points or something like that. Or somewhere in that area. But immediately it was kind of like, well, I need to work on trying to squeeze out an extra 10 points on average on the primary. And that can kind of get me to that magical 80-point mark with paint score where you win 99% of your games. And then I went even further. And While We Stand We Fight, out of 10 games, I got an average of 15 points on While We Stand We Fight. I scored scramblers in all 10 games. And my third secondaries were, I was bouncing around between Linebreaker, Domination, Bring It Down, mission secondaries like Direct Assault. And I got about wherever the third secondaries were, which is kind of where the tough ones are. I got my 2 that I built into my list, and I've got that third one's kind of flex. And honestly, it can be kind of tough, especially if you mischoose. When you go Domination, when you should have gone Engage in all fronts, or vice versa. But I averaged 8 points in that secondary, which felt fine with the nerfs to Bring It Down and Abhor the Witch and some of those overperforming secondaries. Honestly, I feel like getting 8 to 12 kind of feels like it's enough to win you games if you're getting, 15 and 10 for the other ones. Because like I said, that is an average of 32 points in the secondaries that I scored over 10 games. And then I even went so far as to every single game I would put some sort of playtesting objective, and then I would put out the finding, which is good because, a week or 2 later, you kind of forget about these things. And I'm looking at the sheet right now, and I literally have 10 different objectives for each one of those games. And then I have my findings for each one of those games. And so I kind of got a neat little, playtesting tracking system. And not only do I get the firsthand experience of that practice and that playtesting, but I can actually go back afterwards and revisit and identify problem areas. Like over the past week, I was kind of like I said, to reiterate, I need to start, finding 5 to 10 points more per game on primary. Secondaries I'm doing really well on, but that's a deficiency. I need to get 5 or 10 points more on primary per game. And now for my next set of 10 games, that's something I can actively work on. But that was it for me. Will had to step out because he's got family, but he already says peace anyhow. But I think that pretty much wraps it up for the episode. Dan, you want to go ahead and add final thoughts and say our goodbyes?
Yeah, I don't think I have too much more to contribute, but definitely just tracking your own personal performance is a great way at improving at the game, and identifying what your weak point is the best way to improve. I love losing practice games because that tells me what I'm weak against. And the whole goal isn't to win practice games, it's to win events. So with that, I'm good with everything. And thanks everyone for listening. And we'll be back in 2 weeks. And maybe we'll talk about Tyranids because I love them and I think they're going to do well. So with that, I'm out, guys. Peace.
Bye, guys.